Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
So when you say something like, oh, Candace Owens, we don't want you in our culture, you don't understand Black culture, I have to keep reminding you that I don't want to be a part of this culture. I want to destroy it. I want to destroy it. I want to destroy it. I want to destroy it further than it's already destroyed itself. I want to go backward.
A few moments later.
You know, there's a reason why we are the black media. It's because we don't do things that these Negroes who have the white media backing them up like to do. Ever since Candace Owens put herself on the outs with the white right, she's been feebly trying to reinvent herself. And I don't think that anybody should let people forget who and what Candace Owens is and all the crap that she's done. This woman made it her career that she was going to be attacking the black community. I guess she figured that it was going to pay off very well, but apparently it didn't pay as well as she thought it would. But of course, if you're looking for a platform that you can use to try to put one over on the black community, you gotta find the right tool for the job, and you gotta give Candace Owens at least credit for that. She certainly found the right tools with the breakfast schlubs. And of course, there was going to be no hard questions. These guys, they just love yucking it up. They have a hell of a lot more in common with Candace Owens than not. Candace Owens is trying to figure out, how does she get her black cred back? Well, first of all, you gotta have some before you can reclaim it. That's the first problem. And the second one is, it's not going to be the breakfast schlubs or Joe Budden or anybody else who's going to determine whether or not Candace Owens will be allowed in polite black society. It's going to be the grassroots who decide that. And we've already made up our minds on that one. Candace Owens can go slither back to whatever rock she crawled out from under. She chose her friends. She certainly didn't want the black community to be a friend. She wanted to attack the black community, to destroy it. And she wanted to go backwards. Yeah, back to the 1830s. That's where she wanted to go. But it turns out Massa didn't like having her in the big house after all. So now that she's been kicked out, she's looking at the slave quarters, and just like all the rest of the turncoats, trying to make it sound like, oh, I was really down with you guys all along. No, you weren't. Candace Owens acted just like the white supremacist that she models herself after. And of course, these bootlicks, they decided that they were going to go ahead and treat her the same way that they do all of their other non-black guests. Oh, we're just going to go ahead and yuck it up, all teeth. That's nice. We're all buddies here, except we're not. Of course, she's slithering to the black community. She already understands that a lot of those white media outlets that she had previously gotten a warm welcome from, they don't want to talk to her now. And if they did, she wouldn't be getting these softball questions. They'd just be setting her up with the anti-Semitic accusation. That's all it would be. Nothing but hand grenades, no softballs here. In fact, you have one of the main right-wing think tanks, the American Enterprise Institute, who's been trashing Owens. They act as if there's no reason for anyone to have even heard of Owens. Yeah, that's how they're talking about her now. The white right's talking about her as, oh, we've gone from her being the belle of the ball to she's this obscure character. We know you've never heard of her. Yeah, right. I find it interesting coming from AEI because on their website, they had no less than 5 previous articles about Candace Owens. So they've definitely heard about her. They used to love her. She was the belle of the ball, that is, right up until last November. 3 of the 5 AEI articles mentioning Owens have to do with her criticism of Israel. By the way, just a few days ago, AEI published a piece attacking the ACLU because apparently the ACLU refuses to champion one of the white right's pet issues. They claim that free speech is under attack. Oh, the irony. But one of the things I found interesting is that the AEI chose to bring up that back in the day when Owens was first trying to make her bones with the white right, she previously had said she hadn't been a conservative, but that she had had a political conversion. That shouldn't surprise anyone, by the way. This is how these opportunists always operate. Whatever corner of the political machine they think is going to benefit them, that's the one that they run to. And if it turns out that they made the wrong bet, then they'll turn around and say, oh, well, I've had a political conversion. Oh, yes, I've had my Saul on the road to Damascus moment, and I have now seen the light. Yeah, that is until the corner that she runs to apparently runs out of shekels to give her. Then she'll find another corner to run to, and she'll repeat the exact same spiel. These people don't have principles. They only have objectives. Candace Owens has spent several years kissing the white right's behinds. Now, if she actually did have the courage of her convictions, shouldn't she be going back to all of those little right-wing bigots that she had been holding on to and carrying water for and sticking up for? Why doesn't she try to make nice with them? Why don't they go ahead and talk over their differences? That's because she understands exactly what the nature of their relationship was from the very beginning. She was never seen as their equal. At long last, though she refuses to admit it, she understands that the relationship was always oppressor and oppressed. Although, of course, she's just too far from polite to actually use that word, but that's okay. We know that these guys get their foot up your behind, Candace, and we know it's not very comfortable. So that's why she's trying to slither back over here with the black folks. Now, what exactly led to this split between her and the white right? As I mentioned in my prior video about this, Candace Owens was most likely disrespected a lot by those racist males in the white right. Also, they most likely didn't pay her what she was expecting to be getting. It's always about money with these people. The white right is self-destructing. That's another thing that Candace Owens has probably noticed. Back in, say, the 1970s, the Republicans were far more politically pragmatic. That's why they made the decision to tell Richard Nixon to resign the presidency. The Republicans were the ones who did that. It was a delegation of Republican congressmen led by then Texas Congressman George H.W. Bush, who went to the White House and told Nixon, "You're hurting the country. Worse than that, you're hurting the party. So you gotta go." Even racist old Barry Goldwater was in there with them telling Tricky Dick, "You gotta leave." They were as venal and corrupt as ever, but they were also realists. They knew that they wouldn't be getting anywhere unless they could get the stink of Richard Nixon and Watergate off of them. And so they threw Tricky Dick overboard, and 6 years later they had the presidency back, and they won 3 landslide elections and held the White House for 12 years. But since then, the white majority the GOP has counted on to win them elections has continued to dwindle. The culture has also undergone some significant changes too. The Republican Party has not adjusted to any of these developments. Republicans have instead decided to let the incompetent operative class be the thought leaders for the party. Clowns on AM radio and Fox News, idiots who don't have to run for political office, morons who make their money saying the most extreme, stupid, over-the-top stuff. See, for the hate mongers on AM radio and Fox News, they don't have to worry about things like winning office, because their game is simply winning ratings. What they fail to understand is, while the kind of stuff that they do draws an audience for Fox, that's television. And the necessities of monetizing your television station are a heck of a lot lower than what it takes to win the presidency, or for that matter, to be able to carry a number of states, especially at the Senate level. That's what the Republicans have failed to understand. The stupid stuff that Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Candace Owens say on Fox News makes for horrible public policy, and it turns off too many of those centrist voters. But the problem is, for 40 years now, the mouthpieces on the white right like Rush Limbaugh pushed a message of conservatism is perfect, and if you lose an election, it's because you weren't conservative enough. You weren't extreme with your right-wing ideology enough. Again, that plays well for the base and the irrational fringe. But for everyone else, it's a turnoff. Worst of all, though, is that these white right-wing donors, the mega millionaires and billionaires who fund the GOP, these men live in their gated communities, their exclusive walled estates, their private islands. They literally live in a bubble, surrounded by butt-kissers and yes-men. But these men, they get to actually paint their own reality and pretend that their hatred and bigotry somehow has appeal outside of their own little gated community, except it doesn't. So when they see black people or anything that doesn't validate the primacy of white males, they go ballistic. Go back and listen to the video on this channel that I did about why Roger Ailes isn't going away. In it, I pointed out how the mega millionaire Joseph Coors of the Coors Beer dynasty used his millions of dollars to fund every racist white right-wing organization out there. This man didn't have millions of supporters, but he did have millions of dollars. And that's what he used. These elderly, demented old rich racists are a large part of why the party has gone off a cliff. These geriatric bigots control the money in the party, but as they get older, they're demanding policies to try to turn the clock back 100 years. And of course, we can't forget about the extremist morons on the internet. Ron DeSantis tried to make it to the White House by catering to the online trash who you see posting racist memes about black people. And DeSantis found out the hard way that what Lindsey Graham said is true. The Republican Party simply isn't creating enough angry white males for them to be able to hold office. Now, what this has to do with Candace Owens is, I believe that Candace Owens is fully capable of seeing what the Republican Party's been doing, the mistakes they've been making. Hell, the fact that she gave those broadsides against Israel, that was right there a declaration of war against them, or at least a declaration that she wasn't going to be playing nice with them. She could clearly read the tea leaves. Who the hell couldn't? But this doesn't mean that she's on the side of the angels. What it means is that Candace Owens, she's already switched sides before, and now she's looking to go ahead and do it again. The GOP may have painted themselves into a corner that they can't get out of, but it seems Candace Owens wants out. Put those factors together and you get a good idea why people like Candace Owens left. It's the same reason punks like Steve Schmidt left the GOP. Schmidt was an advisor to John McCain, you'll recall, and we see how well that went for McCain's numerous failed presidential campaigns. I don't think Schmidt respected McCain at all. He certainly didn't adore the man as much as he tries to convince people that he does. To Schmidt, McCain represents a high-profile reputation that he figures he can use to give his own deficient ideology some thin veneer of legitimacy. Like him or hate him, in D.C. and in the white media, John McCain was respected. Schmidt, on the other hand, desperately wants that for himself. And in Arizona and elsewhere, he's ignored at best and reviled at worst. But the GOP had no use for him, so Schmidt has been attacking the party. Why not? When political parties don't reward you, you have no incentive not to kneecap them. But this is the well that Candace Owens is drawing from these days. People like her don't have principles, they only have objectives, and they don't really care who they have to work for to get them. It's like what I've told you about these high-powered politicians and their wives. Why do you think that whenever some politician has a huge scandal, their wife always has to go out there for the humiliating press conference with the media? Bill and Hillary, Elliot Spitzer and his wife, Andrew Big Bussy Gillum. And by the way, even though there were no sex scandals during Barack Obama's administration, or at all for that matter, doesn't change the fact that Michelle Obama, she stands by him for the same reason all of these other politicians' wives do. See, when you're talking about people like this, they don't have marriages. They have arrangements. And the same goes for these political operatives like Candace Owens. They don't have friends. They have personal goals for themselves. Their respective political parties or the ideological movements that they advocate for are merely seen as a pathway for what they really want, a means to an end. By now, Candace Owens probably thought that she would be working as an advisor to a presidential campaign by now, or that she would have a big book deal or at least a show on Fox, but she doesn't have any of those things. They didn't want her in the first place. Part of the job description for a bootlick is you have to be their willing punching bag. They know you get tired of the abuse, they know you don't like it, and that's the entire point. But between now and when you finally get tired of taking their abuse, they know that they'll have a good old time using you, abusing you, and then screwing you over until you finally throw yourself out the door. This is where Candace Owens is now. As I've always said, white supremacy has no long-term plans for any of its tools. Hell, Simone Sanders managed to play the game better than Candace Owens or Omarosa did, and nobody would give Simone Sanders any credit for being some sort of genius. Michael Steele is a regular fixture on MSNBC, and you better believe he gets paid for his appearances. That's why he attacks the GOP that he used to be the chairman of full time. Now put yourself in the shoes of a Stacey Dash or an Omarosa or a Candace Owens. You get disrespected regularly, you don't get paid what you think you should, and the money's the entire point that you decide to carry water for the white right. And the people who you work for don't even do the pig simple stuff that they need to do to help themselves. Now, she deleted her little old post where she was trying to claim, it's the media, they're brutally smearing me, they want to convince black people, my own community, that I hated them. No, Candace Owens, they were just accurately reporting what you already said. The black community already knows that Candace Owens hates black people. She's done everything that she can to run away from the black community. And we're going to make sure she cannot come back. Oh, finally, Black America is recognizing that they were intentionally misled. Those are the voices in her empty head talking. Because if she thinks that the breakfast schlubs and Joe Budden are Black America, well, it just goes to show that she's hung around those white media moguls too long. They may be able to manufacture their own little worlds on their sound stages and in their studios, but out here with black folks, we're not fooled at all. And you see who she thanks for her little would-be image rehab. This is the reason why you need the black media. Because without us, this is what they would be doing. They'd be bringing out these idiots and claiming, see, they speak for the black community. They speak for the black community. And where's Charlemagne the Fraud and DJ Penis Envy to push back against this and say, no, you are on the outs with the black community. We gave you a chance to speak your mind, but that doesn't mean that anybody respects you or likes you. No, of course not. Because they all work for the exact same white media, although in the case of Candace Owens, she's aspiring to find a new would-be white media patron. Candace Owens may not be an anti-Semite, but she's definitely anti-black, as she herself said.
I don't want to be a part of this culture. I want to destroy it.
And keep in mind, these white supremacists, when they use words like culture, they use that as a euphemism for race. They use that for a euphemism for these are people we don't like. Whenever they say that all cultures are not created equal, Western culture is in a war, they're talking about race. They dang sure ain't talking about black people. They're definitely not talking about black Americans when they say the West. They're not talking about us. Now, while I do think that people like Jonathan Greenblatt and this woman from the AEI and others constantly throwing the word anti-Semite at people, that is already backfiring with disastrous consequences. But speaking of backfiring, Candace Owens' own clumsy attempts to get her black card back, that's not working either. She has far more years of being a performative clown for the white right behind her than she does anything else. Her reputation is already etched in granite, and if she thinks she's gonna blackwash it now, she's got another thing coming. Once you leave black, you can't go back. Candace Owens said it herself. Her mission was to destroy black culture. But in the end, the only thing she destroyed was herself. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Mark Anderson, Semesta Hobson, Terrence Gaines, Brenda McPherson, and Joseph Isaiah. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.